We're supposed to be at our desks when the bell rings. Does this count? Yeah, I try to stay away from my desk because they keep trying to get me to do management work. I did not bust my butt getting an engineering degree to be a manager. I am an engineer. I'm not a girly girl. I don't do makeup. I don't wear lipstick. I keep my hair short. Well, I do use a curling iron just for a little wave. But one day these hands are going to have nail art fit for a museum, you mark my words. But for now, I'm in this co-op program, getting work experience and college credit towards my degree. It is not easy, but I'm not afraid of a challenge. Boredom is my biggest fear. I gotta stay busy. I gotta keep solving problems, stay curious. I always wanna know how things work. Okay, George, I'll be there in a minute. I get to go on a field trip today. Like I said, I try to stay away from my desk, and anytime I can go look at the submarines or the nuclear-powered carriers, I am on it. I work for Newport News Shipbuilding. It's the largest employer here in Virginia. My options were NASA or the shipyard. Between you and me, I should have gone with NASA, but shipyard pays better. And I'm a single woman. Now, I didn't used to be. I got married right out of high school. Can you believe that? My sweetheart was in the Air Force. That's how we made it out here to Virginia, because I'm originally from up north. I was born in New York. I graduated high school a year early. And as soon as I turned 18, I was married. Once my husband got out of the Air Force, it was my turn. I enrolled in college. We had it all planned out. I was gonna work and he was gonna stay home and take care of the kids. How's that for forward thinking, huh? Oh, he really wanted kids. But I really wanted to be an engineer. You know, when I started the engineering program, it was only 5% women. And the program is hard. Oh, you gotta really want it. I really want it. I couldn't deal with kids while I was in school. So my plan was to get pregnant senior year, because the first and third years are the weeder years, the really tough ones where they see if you can stick it out. We had a plan. Unfortunately, he couldn't stick with it because he couldn't wait for me. We got divorced my junior year. Turns out kids aren't in the cards for me. But as soon as I got divorced, all these guys started hitting on me. Well, why engineering? You ask. Well, I wanted something that would challenge me. I also wanted to prove to my father I could do it, because he was an engineer himself, electrical engineer, and all he'd do is work and drink. He'd work all day, and then he'd come home and he'd sit on the couch and he'd drink gin on ice and fall asleep, and he'd pick a fight with you if you let him. He left my mom a huge inheritance, though. Probably so we'd think more favorably of him, but George, I am coming. Keep your pants on. I gotta go. George is taking me to see a submarine under construction. Ooh, I love watching all the various trades at work, but it is a jungle. You gotta really watch your step, because there are holes and tools and hydraulic lines and parts scattered everywhere, and I love it. Like I said, I always want to know how things work. I love that sound. After a while, I realized I hate engineering. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love math and I love solving problems, but I'm a people person, and with engineering, the job is just you and your pencil. But with teaching, you get to reach more people. I have my own classroom, 5 classes. You know what that means? 5 shows a week. My classroom, my rules. I got hired on because I can teach calculus, so I've got the top students in the school, but I also teach lower level math, and so I've got all the kids who are just this close to dropping out. But every student who comes into my class is going to learn some life lessons along the way. You know, like how to work together, how to get along, even if you don't like each other. And that comes up a lot in my class because, you know, Tony doesn't want to work with Tommy because of, you know, this or that. And I teach them how to get along. And it's a lesson that'll serve them well when they go out and they find a job, because you can't quit your job every time you don't like your boss. Also, one second. What are you boys and girls doing? Really, we're doing that today. We're throwing all the chairs on the floor. All right, well, as long as you know that you're going to be the ones to put it back the way you found it. Are we clear? Thank you. They're just being how they are. They're trying to get a rise out of me, and it's not going to work. Where was I? Oh, yeah. You gotta stay positive. You gotta look at the glass half full. My hand fell asleep a little while back. I told the neurologist something's wrong, but they didn't take it seriously. And that's one thing about me. I do not take no for an answer. And so I told them I'm not going to hear no more about me being fine. I know something's not right. And sure enough, they did a CAT scan and an MRI and a spinal tap. And sure enough, I've got MS. But I'm gonna not be one of those people that dwells on their illness. I'm gonna do the best I can for as long as I can. And one day, after MS has claimed the use of both of my hands, I'll have great nails. Mark my word.
I have to go to the bathroom. I don't want to miss anything. Turn the sound up. Louder! Who left the toilet seat up? Hello? I'm stuck in the toilet! Help! After about 10 minutes, my mother came looking for me. It felt like an eternity. My family never let me live that down. Creature Features was a Friday night show hosted by Bob Wilkins. He would show a variety of horror movies every week. I love scary movies because we used to watch all the classics as a family. I was the youngest of 5 children. We enjoyed going to the drive-in on Saturday nights too. We'd take our own popcorn, and my mother would fill one of those easy pump thermal bottles with hot cocoa. We brought blankets and ordered pizza at the drive-in for dinner. One night, my father parked next to a green VW bus just like ours. Only ours had beautiful floral curtains that my mother had made. The family waved back. While watching the movie, my brother had to go to the bathroom. And when he returned, he got into the wrong car.
What I miss? What I miss?
He even reached in to eat some of their popcorn.
Ah!
He jumped out of their car. Both families laughed so hard. He finally noticed because their family had popcorn from a drive in tub, while ours was in a bowl from home. Not to mention the other family was white. I'm sure they told that story for years, just like us. Yes, I still love scary movies, especially on Halloween. I'm a fan of the Halloween movies with Michael Myers, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and all the Scream movies. I love the classics and the remakes of Prom Night and Carrie. Oh, and I can't forget the Amityville horror movies. My mother and I would walk to Delar's bookstore in downtown Oakland, and we'd buy books every week. I remember the summer of sixth grade, the Amityville book. I read it in one day. I loved comparing the movie and discovering the parts that were written in the book but omitted from the movie. Scary things were fun as a child because I had my family to protect me. As an adult, the horrors were too real. My freshman year at USF, my mother had a stroke, my father had a heart attack, and my brother got assaulted. He was beaten up so bad that we almost didn't recognize him. These things brought us closer together, but because of health issues, I lost everyone except for my sister. My eldest brother, Kevin, died in 1993. My father, John, died in 2005. After his death, we lost someone almost every year. My brother, Eric, my brother, Reginald, my mother, Benny, a year later on the same day as my brother. She lost her husband and all three sons before her passing. Before we could finish grieving for one, someone else would pass. It was a very difficult time. Still is, especially for me. Over a year ago, I moved into a skilled nursing facility for physical therapy. Hopefully, I'll be going home soon. It's been hard being alone. And my sister Karen picks up my mail once a month and brings it to me. And she can't visit because of COVID-19 restrictions. It's been really hard not having my parents and my brothers for moral support. I dream about them a lot, so that does help. A dream from years ago has stuck with me. We were at church, and my brothers were altar boys. And I was shocked to see my father standing next to the priest because he never attended Sunday services with us. And every time I tried to approach, he stopped me. But then he motioned to my sister. I remembered my father had passed away, and I began to cry in my sleep. I didn't understand why he wouldn't talk to me. He looked my sister in the eye, nodded his head, and then hugged her, as if to assure her that everything would be okay. I woke up crying and heartbroken. Why wouldn't he? Why would he comfort my sister and not me? This dream bothered me for days until my mom and I went to go visit her. She had an appointment with her doctor. There was a chance she had cancer, and they ran a test. My father, and then she told us something that had been happening in her house. My father's obituary, which she kept on the mantle, had fallen to the floor. She put it back and didn't think much of it. And then the next day, she walked in and saw it on the table. She figured someone must have been looking at it and forgot to put it back on the mantle. And she asked her family, and no one had touched it. The following day, the obituary was gone. She and her daughter looked all over for it and couldn't find it. She opened her purse, and there it was. She said, my mother said that my dad must be trying to send my sister a message. And at that moment, I knew that my father needed to tell my sister not to worry, that everything would be okay with her cancer scare. The results came back negative, and the following day, the obituary stopped moving from place to place. Moving obituaries, dreams. Through all the scary things, my family is with me.
Are you ready? You don't look ready, Jeff. Look at that tie. Are you nervous? You look nervous. How does a kid who has survived having kidney stones at the age of 14 get nervous about shouting out a simple I do? Practice with me. I do. Good. You are a McCraney, right? We find a way or make a way. Look out that window over there. You see your mom? That beautiful lady directing everyone on where to go, what to do. That's a good woman. I knew it as soon as I looked down from the bunk bed in my cousin Lee's garage room. She was only 9 then, but the fellow could tell she was the one. I knew what I wanted, and I made a way. As soon as I turned 18 and she turned 14, we got married. Don't look at me like that. It was a different time back then. And nobody then nor now has ever lived the perfect life. I needed someone to take care of me. Oh, I took care of them. Now look at us. Still imperfect, but perfectly matched. Is that woman you're about to marry going to do the same for you? You think so? What kind of answer is that? It's either yes or no, Jeff. You find a way or make a way. Give me that towel over there. Those shoes need a little bit more shine. No, I'll take care of that. Give it here. You just sit and relax. I'm glad you had your mother to take good care of you while I was working. But maybe I've been too soft on you. It's a blessing to have a good life, but sometimes you come out even stronger with a hard one. I had to empty a full pot of my mother's urine every day starting at the age of 5. Trying not to let it drip on my hands and clothes. Dealing with stuff like that, when you come of age, you don't really worry about, and I do. You know, I was basically a slave to your grandmother, waiting on her hand and foot because of the polio. She couldn't do anything for herself, except sew. And I even had to help her with that. Took care of both of them, really, until the state put them both in jail for child neglect. Now look at me. 6 beautiful kids, a career as a firefighter, and my oldest is about to settle down. Not bad for a poor kid that climbed the Watts Tower just to pass the time. All of what's in me is in you, son. You have a life to build with that beautiful woman in the other room. And if you have even half the luck I had with your mom, you'll be all right. It's a big step, I know. Sit down. Did I ever tell you about that plane crash in 71? No? So the short version is there was a plane crash over the San Gabriel Mountains near Monrovia. Both planes naturally went down in flames. There was a woman on the passenger liner holding her baby boy. They fell 15,000 feet. Then there was another explosion on impact. She flew a mile away from the crash site. When I found what I had discovered to be her body, it was almost beyond recognition. But the amazing thing is, throughout all that wreckage, being tossed and turned about, hitting so hard you were a mile away from the crash site, she still had her boy in her arms. She refused to let him go. I have to say this. Jeff, when you were first born, I was in a gang, smoking pot, drinking almost as heavy as my parents did. I was going down that same path. Then I met you. 2 years later, I quit it all cold turkey. I didn't need to hold on to that garbage anymore. I decided to hold on to you, to my family. That woman reminded me that it is my job to take care of you no matter what, to hold on to you no matter how far life has thrown us. I know with your condition, you haven't had it easy, but I need you to get up and walk down that aisle with confidence, knowing your mom and I are holding you. We love you deeply and will always, always hold you. Now, go down there and make us proud. And don't come back until I have a grandchild.
A piece of my story, adapted by Aleta Barthell, revised November 12th, 2020. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, lock the door. 5, 6, pick up sticks. 7, 8, let's integrate all in. That was the cry. I don't know if it's a dream or not, but I keep seeing my sister's fist up in the air from a hospital bed. But that's not like my sister. It's more like me. I didn't get to see her in the end because of the same thing I've got. It took her, the COVID virus. Ask me what it's like to lose my baby sister. That's what you should ask me. You know, I was telling God that he took my baby sister way too early. Way too early. She would call me 3 times a day. It always started with, hey, you. There were 3 of us kids. My brother Ron, me, and my sister Debbie. We lived on Michigan Avenue. My dad's shop was at 2424 Wabash Avenue, way down by the Loop. That's what they call downtown Chicago, the Loop. Thompson Electric Company. That's what was on his trucks. There was a red one and a blue one. People saw him come and go from his business, and all other kinds of people coming in and out. The secretary, workers, and somehow people did not realize he was the Thompson in Thompson Electric Company. And when my father made sure people did know that he was the Thompson in Thompson Electric Company, that's when the trouble started. The sheer presence of my dad, a black man with his own business, his own trucks, his own employees. It was an affront to the powers that be and the neighborhoods it was. Once they found out Thompson Electric Company was owned by a black man, business dried up. Get out, nigger, was spray painted on his office window. It was what my father would face in the morning. A brick through the window was another. People calling him Boy when he was a 40-year-old man. They burned down his business twice. It was after Dr. King was killed that we moved to Decatur, Illinois. Decatur and Chicago are 2 different places, my friends. There would be no more running off to see Gwendolyn Brooks read her poetry on the south side of Chicago without my mother's permission or knowing. The pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. We real cool. We left school. We left late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We sin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. She had a real fire to her, Gwendolyn Brooks. She'd be reading her poems in these tiny rooms, filling them with her passion. Decatur was good for living, I guess. There were lots of changes in our lives. Most people didn't want us in their neighborhood. My father didn't have his own business anymore, but he didn't lose his livelihood. He was still a damn good electrician. He worked for the state power company. It was all right. Gave him health insurance, a paycheck, a facade. Kept those little Easter clothes coming. Now, what Decatur did have was the FSO, for soul only. It was a clubhouse with a jukebox, and I learned to bop while Mom did the laundry around the corner. The laundromat was a place where my mom had a certain amount of freedom. For several hours, I would help her fold things. She showed me how to do it meticulously. To this day, that's how I fold my clothes. With the riots, Decatur was a smaller, more manageable place to be, to survive. It wasn't easy, but it was safer than Chicago. But I love me some Chicago. I so wanted to go to the University of Illinois in Champaign. I really wanted to go to SIU in Carbondale, but that wasn't even considered in my father's household. Too many parties and F's, as in failure. and that wasn't funny in my household. I went to Millikan University in Decatur instead. That's where I did get in. I majored in journalism. It was a small school. There were 18 to 20 Black students at the time there, in the whole university. I became aware of what a college education meant, not just for the family, but for the whole community. There was pride for the neighborhood, the church, even the swimming pool you went to. It wasn't cheap, financially or politically. You were making a statement. In the South, you went to an all-Black college. In the North, a few of the white universities were letting Blacks in, and that's where we went. We all went to college, my brother Ron, me, and Debbie. Education was very important to my family. My daddy said you could be best if you could convince them that you were an above-average student. My dad was self-taught. He was born in Nassau, the Bahamas. And the food he cooked, being from the Bahamas, it made our stomachs happy. A little hot for my taste. He did not go to school beyond the 3rd grade. I think it was his pride that killed him early. He was angry all the time. He could have a good time for about 15 minutes, but then he'd get angry again. One night at dinner, after saying grace, my father, without warning, put his hand through the glass table and shouted, "I put the food on the table, not God. I have people kicking my ass every day, but I put food on the table." Those 2 attempts to burn his business in Chicago had been his breaking point. Now, don't get me wrong. My dad played hard, too. I remember that he and Uncle Frank would spend time at the Playboy Club in Chicago, and you had to have a key to get in there. There was prestige in that. Uncle Frank wasn't really my uncle, you know, but that's what we called him. He looked white, but he was Black. He came from an interracial marriage. I don't know what went on in there. I just know I wasn't supposed to know. Yeah, right. It didn't make my mother happy, but for a few short hours, it made my dad feel good. At that time, the Playboy Club was like giving a kid a handful of candy. My mom was beautiful, well-spoken, smart, and caring. She was Leanna Combs, and she was to be feared, a different kind of fear than that of my father. I feared my father like you fear the police or an army, but I feared my mother on a daily level, like when I didn't get my homework done. Maybe I should have feared her more. She could be fierce and proud. The whole time growing up, we were taught to speak well and be proud. There was a picture of me when I was 4 or 5 with a sign draped over me for a boycott. We were boycotting the schools, them not teaching Black history as it really was. I was holding my mom's hand as we marched the street on the south side of Chicago. I remember the school shutting down because of the protest. My mom was a registered nurse. She went to school in Kansas City. It wasn't a friendly place, but she met my father there. To her, that made it all worthwhile. Eventually, she moved to Chicago and spent time at various places as a head nurse. That meant she was in charge. I remember my mother's cap. It was white with a black velvet band on it that identified her as a registered nurse. One of the not so nice places that she worked was Cook County Hospital. Discrimination at work was different for my mom than for my dad. For my mom, it was more subtle, not being chosen to be in an operating room or in the emergency room. But I do remember when she was part of a team that separated those Siamese twins. That was a big deal in Chicago and in my house. She was a great cook. Both my parents were. Whether it was a pot of stew, a baked chicken, or meatloaf or some dish from the islands. In spite of working full time, she or my mom's mom, always had dinner ready. It was what my dad expected. The table would be set with a tablecloth, and my dad's place was always set at the head of the table, whether he was there or not. Nobody ever sat in his spot, not even my mother. There were distinct lines in my mother's life. Wife, mother, nurse. My dad did the same thing to my mom that was being done to him. He kept her in her place. She was his wife, and she'd better play her role. As a kid, it was personal to watch this played out before me. With the entrance of civil rights into our lives, my parents could tell that things were about to change. But what frightened them was that they didn't know at what cost. I remember because we kept chains on our doors at night. Kids didn't play as easily. We went to school and then came straight home and put the chains up until our parents got home from work. There were good times and bad times, good friends and bad friends, good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. When you're Black, you have to make something out of everything, big or small. My parents were married a long, long time, more than 30 years, until my father died. They divorced people and things, but not each other. I've worked in theater for over 40 years. 3 productions that had meaning in my life, an impact on my psyche, were Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, a story about housing in Chicago, and Lordy, what a mess that was. A Trip to Bountiful by Horton Foote, a play about an old woman traveling back to yesterday, and Having Our Say by Emily Mann, the story of the Delaney sisters. Women telling their stories. Older Black women telling their stories. Sisters who'd seen a lot, just like me and Deb. One always mouthing off with her fist in the air, and one who was soft-spoken and always polite. You get to a certain place in life and you just have to speak your mind. It's all that's left to do. That's not quite right. For a Black woman, there's always something else left to do. If it's not at home, it's in the neighborhood, it's at the church or the community center. It goes on and on. The Civil Rights Movement was named in 1954, the year that I was born. I grew up in a period of trials and tribulations. Try this, try that. Me, I just try to write my own damn story. You see, it includes a lot. The hard thing about COVID, whatever you want to call it, is that some things will come up, and then some things I can't remember anything from 15 minutes ago. I don't think I could have gotten where I am without the Lord. Someone right there, patting me on the shoulder. But I sure wouldn't mind someone down here with me saying, hey, you, let me take you and heal you with a salve so you won't hurt anymore. This is just a touch of who I have become and where I am right now. As you can probably tell, my story and all that has happened to me has brought me to this point. Let's see what tomorrow brings. That's it.